To buy or not to buy? That is the question. Or at least it's one of the questions. I'm going to give you a whole list to ask yourself in order to be successful in finding your next property.
Adventures in real estate.
Let's get started. The first question to ask yourself is why? You need to know what purpose the property is going to serve. Figuring that out is not as easy as it sounds, so let's try and narrow it down a little bit. First of all, people think that location is the most important, and it's the one thing that you can't change, so yes, it's likely the biggest piece of the pie, but please don't get fixated. There are more great micro neighborhoods than you think. If I had a nickel for every time I heard someone say, "Oh, my neighborhood is the best," until they move to their new neighborhood, huh? Is that you? Might be you. Now, speaking of neighborhood, you need to analyze what it is about the area that appeals to you and then how that desirability affects price now and in the future. The best investors are masters at this part. They specialize in this. That's what separates them from the average person. Now, remember, real estate is cyclical. So every neighborhood goes through famine and feast. It's slow moving, but there's always a transition taking place. So you need to play the long game. Safe real estate is thinking long term. The smart way to play the market is long term. How many times can I say it? Did you get it? Good. End of video. Just kidding. Are you wanting a neighborhood that's transitioning, which, if chosen right, gives the greatest upside financially? Or do you want established? There's no right or wrong answer here. An established one is a known commodity, so you know exactly what you're paying for and what you're getting. Now, the next question to ask yourself, are you open to renovations? Not fantasy renovations, but the actual real job of doing it. Or do you want something that's move-in ready? It's almost always reno for me. That's how I default. I love adding value and creating a space that fits us perfectly, but it takes time, knowledge, and money, so factor that in. Either way, you need to understand what's possible. In real estate language, that's zoning. Make sure you figure out what you can do, what square footage is allowed. Can you add a laneway home, develop the basement, put in a suite? What are rental restrictions that seem to be changing quickly? All of those answers are found through the city that you live in. So you have to get brave, pick up the phone, call the city, get the answers. Finding a house is like finding a partner. Be prepared to go slowly and then move fast. Be flexible and also stand your ground. Be emotionally invested, but not attached. I actually think that that is the most important one. Don't be afraid to pull the trigger, but also don't be trigger happy. The more time you put into the process will give you the best chance of getting it right. So here's a little sneak peek into how we buy properties, Rebecca and I. Now, we spend a ton of time clicking and searching online, sending each other listings. Rebecca looks at everything on realtor.ca. She sends me links all the time. And then I filter through them and find out which ones I think might be possible. Then we do drive-bys. I know that sounds super simple, but it's a really easy way for us to determine whether we groove on the neighborhood. So the view, the orientation of the house, where the sun comes from, the road it's on, the proximity to amenities, schools, noise, smell. I know it sounds funny, but you want to make sure that the neighborhood smells. Neighbors, not the neighbors smell bad, but you know what I'm saying. Parking, walkability, safety. These things you need to trust your gut, and you'll know. Then we hit open houses. We both love going to open houses. We've been doing this for so long, but open house is super fun. And then we try and find a benchmark property, one that we can analyze all the others against and evaluate price and value in relation to that benchmark property. It's kind of like the first person that you fell in love with. You know what I mean? You kind of analyze other people against that person. But without these next questions answered, everything up till now is just for fun because you don't have your financing sorted out. At the end of the day, it all boils down to the money. Now, Rebecca actually doesn't like this stuff, and so I take on this part because I actually kind of like it. Not exactly sure what she does at this point, but I'm a...
Listing.
What?
I do the finding the listing, and you do all this stuff.
But the finding of the listing already happened.
Well, what did you do while I was finding the listing?
Right. I was doing nothing. I was just sitting there waiting for you to find the listing.
That's what I thought.
All right. Sorry for the interrupt.
Do something.
How much can you afford? How much down payment do you have? Or how much can you find? What are the interest rates now and what are they going to be in the future? Where are they headed? How much do you have for renos, furnishings, moving? People don't like talking about money, but without it, nothing else matters. It's important to understand these nuances because the financing piece ultimately is the foundation to this whole thing working. Once you've answered all of that and you feel comfortable with it, now you're ready to get serious. So think of the bank as your partner, your personal backer. You're in partnership with them, literally. You're sugar daddy. So before having this figured out, you are literally just fantasizing, which is fun too. After our drive-bys, we've eliminated probably 95% of the places that we thought we liked, and we book showings on the few that still make the grade. Now you have to remind yourself, no matter how many times you do this, that the buyer is in the driver's seat. If done right, even in a seller's market, they're selling, you're buying. They're not selling anything unless you are going to step up to the plate. If you've done all the work to answer all the questions that we just talked about, you can walk through the front door and you're ready. You have your criteria, your purpose, and you know whether you can afford it. So it's that feeling that we're looking for. Now, if you want to know the nuts and bolts of our latest sale, like the actual real numbers, the negotiation, etc. of the pink door house, and the purchase of this one, the one that we're going to renovate, the one I'm sitting in right now, we break it all down in another video. So check that one out, like, follow, twirl around, sit back down, do 3 push-ups, watch the other video.